Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to the Board of Trustees meeting for the Utah Transit Authority Board of Trustees. The meeting, which is Wednesday, August the 26th at 9 a.m. We are joined by my colleague, Beth. Oh boy, I just had a slip there. Beth Holbrook, excuse me, Beth. And I apologize. We've unfortunately had an accident this morning, and our colleague Kent Millington was injured, but we believe he'll be fine. But is not able to join us, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with him at this time. So we do have a statutory statement that needs to be read as part of this meeting in order to stream this meeting live, and I'll ask our colleague Jana Osler if she'll do that.
I'm reading the electronic board meeting determination on behalf of Chair Christensen. The statement reads, consistent with provisions of the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, specifically Utah Code 52-4-207, Section 4, and acting in my capacity as the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority, I hereby make the following written determinations in support of my decision to hold and convene electronic meetings of the UTA Board without a physical anchor location. Conducting board and board committee meetings with an anchor location that is physically accessible for members of the public to attend in person presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. This determination is based upon the following facts, among others. A, the COVID-19 pandemic is ongoing and significant, and continued community person-to-person transmission of the SARS coronavirus 2 virus continues to occur in the state of Utah. And B, federal, state, and local health authorities have adopted guidelines for the general public and businesses, which encourage institutions and individuals to take precautions, including limiting in-person interactions and recommending increased virtual interactions. This written determination takes effect on August 24th, 2020, and is effective until midnight on September 23rd, 2020, no more than 30 days after the effective date of this declaration, and may be reissued by future written determinations of the chair of the board or at that or any other appropriate time. Dated this 21st day of August, 2020, signed Carlton J. Christensen.
Thank you, Jana. With that, we'll begin our meeting with our first of our Safety First Minute. To that, we'll turn to Sheldon Shaw. Good morning, Sheldon.
Good morning, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity as always. Each Friday, the Safety Department sends out a safety message to be used as the next week's message that could be used for meetings. The one that was sent out last Friday was about roadway construction safety. And it says that roadway construction is in full swing. When traveling through work zones, give crews a break. We should slow down, beware of changing travel patterns, allow adequate room between your vehicle, work crews, and construction equipment, and most importantly, don't drive distracted. Appreciate the opportunity, Chair.
Thank you, Sheldon. Our next item up is our consent agenda, which is approval of our minutes from August the 12th. With that, I'll turn to my colleague, Beth Holbrook, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. A motion by Beth, seconded by myself. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thanks, Beth. With that, next we'll go to our agency report and welcome our Executive Director, Carolyn Gonat. Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning. I just have a few items today. One of them is I just actually, well, before I get into the three items listed, is that we did have our change day that began on Sunday on August 23rd. It's going well in terms of no hiccups and things moving forward. We know ridership has jumped up on bus as well as UVX system, and then with BYU starting next week, we know there'll be increases as well. But next week we'll have a full week, and we'll give you that ridership report at the September 2nd board meeting. So we'll keep you posted as to how things are going as we restored much of the service that we took away in April. First thing I want to cover is the Government Finance Officers Association recognition. We were recognized again this year. I want to really recognize the staff in the finance division. This Distinguished Budget Presentation Award has been awarded to UTA for its 2020 budget book. The award represents the 20th Distinguished Budget Presentation Award awarded to UTA in its history. The award is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental budgeting, and attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. The award has been judged by an impartial panel who meet to look at the standards of the program, which we are considered to have very high standards, and demonstrates a spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the budget. So please join me in congratulating our Senior Manager of Budget and Finance Analysis, Brad Armstrong, and his wonderful team. Congratulations, Brad. And I also want to give a shout out to the previous CFO who's left, Bob Biles, as well. So I want to thank them very much for this award.
Yeah, we'll give them a little bit of an applause, but virtually anyway. I will say they have done a great job. I've looked at budget books for probably a couple decades, and ours is at least readable. So that's quite a statement on their behalf. So thank you. Congratulations.
It's well deserved.
Yeah, nice work. That is a challenge, and they've done a great job.
Next, I want to actually recognize and congratulate Alicia Garrett. Mass Transit, the organization, the magazine, represents 40 people under 40 within the transit industry every year, and Alicia was recognized this year in 2020. And I just want to give her a huge note of gratitude for all the work she has done so far working with UTA, and this award is well deserved. And I'm going to turn this over to Kim Ulibarri, the Chief People Officer, who will say a few words about Alicia and the nomination that we put forward and some of her accomplishments.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yes, I'm very pleased to be able to talk a little bit about Alicia's accomplishments that she's had here at UTA since she joined us in May of 2012. She started in our operations unit in the Salt Lake Service unit as an analyst, and she was there for 2 years and made a huge impact, such an impact organizationally that I went and stole her out of there in 2014 to come to my department and stand up our UTA continuous improvement department. That was something, part of our culture that we had been working on, really trying to embed continuous improvement in the agency. And Alicia's work, even in the analyst in Salt Lake Service Unit, really led out on that culture journey. And so I was really excited to get to bring her onto my team to stand up this new department and to create a organizational-wide continuous improvement team. She's done such amazing work with that team. And in that a small year of doing that work, I saw, amongst other people, we all saw the potential that she had, and had such a, we're so impacted by her passion and the work that she had done in the continuous improvement department. I was looking for someone to take over our training and development function, which is a really large piece of work to do at our organization. And within a year, I tapped her to take that work on in addition to the continuous improvement team and work. So she was appointed to this position, not just because of her ability to be analytical and to do continuous improvement work, but one thing about Alicia is that she is able to bring people together, bring them around a vision, get them motivated, find the skills that they have and help them develop those. And she was able to put a team together and stand up new work and really move our training and development and our continuous improvement and all of our culture work that we were doing forward. And she's just done an amazing job, and it's been a pleasure to work with her over these few years. I wanted to highlight a couple of things. In addition to her accomplishments, which I will tell you, it was very hard for me to pare down these few bullet points to put on this page. For those who work directly with her, you know she's just done so many things in her short time with UTA. But I wanted to talk a little bit about her as a person. If you get to read the article about her, the first question they ask is, what's one word to describe you? And she picked passionate. And I will tell you, if you've worked with Alicia, you know that she is passionate, and that passion, it ignites passion in other people. She's just a joy to work with. And so I thought that that was something I'd want to share. Also, some of her favorite hobbies are ballroom dancing. Her and her husband took lessons last year and have done a lot of ballroom dancing. She has beautiful dresses and just does a lovely job of that. She also loves traveling, and so I know that this pandemic has put a little bit of a kink in her world there, and gardening. She loves to be out in the garden. She sends me beautiful pictures of her yard at home. So she's more than what we get to see at the agency here, and that's a lot. So I'll highlight a couple of things that I took out of the document that we used to nominate her. I think I mentioned a little bit about Alicia's role in moving our culture journey forward, but I want to just really highlight she was a key member of the team who developed the UTA Way model, which is our current culture model here, and she has just led out on that culture journey so well. And so she did mention that that was one of her proudest accomplishments when she was interviewed by Mass Transit. She's also done so much work in our leadership development programs over the last 2 years. Those have been a real key priority for the agency, and she has, with her team, stood up 2 new leadership development programs and is getting ready to roll out a third. During the time when we were hiring for expanded service, she was able to lead her bus operations training team to really make some key significant improvements to help with retention of our operators. And that was critical when we were, in a 2.75% unemployment market and trying to staff up for new service. And some of the changes that she made to that really helped us accomplish that goal. I think I've mentioned already, she stood up our brand new CI team, which has been so successful, and we are really making improvements in skills of continuous improvement, embedding those skills out into the operating and support units. She also did a lot of work on budget. She's actually taking on some of the CFO role temporarily for the 2021 budgeting process. And she showed us real early on in her career that she has an amazing financial and business acumen. And so she was able to develop and standardize some processes for the CFO and the COO when it came to calculating our operator wages in the budget, which really helped us better refine what we were doing there. And it looks like she's created some algorithms and other analyses to improve our budget metric accuracy by 83%. I could go on, but I'll stop talking. I want to just say congratulations to Alicia. Again, she is a joy to work with and brings so much to this organization. So congratulations, Alicia. I know she's on here, so I'm assuming we'd like to just have her say a couple of words.
Yeah, that would be great, Alicia.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone at UTA. It's an honor to be recognized as someone that's Mass Transit's top 40 under 40. And I just have to say that I didn't reach any of these accomplishments alone. I've had tremendous leadership support here. I've been provided with so many opportunities to really challenge and to expand and innovate in different ways across the agency. And I love to brag about my team. I claim I have the most amazing team, and my accomplishments are due to all of their hard work and everything that they do. So I'm honored to receive this award, and I want everyone to know that I couldn't be where I am today without such amazing team and leadership at UTA. It's been a wonderful experience.
We should give you another round of applause, Alicia. If I could show the screen, you'd see a screen full of people clapping for you. So I just on a personal note, my wife and I were at a dinner last year with Alicia and her husband, and they divulged their ballroom dancing thing, and my wife's been trying to get me to do that for 30 years. So I just want to thank you for putting me in a bad position there. So, thanks.
I just want to say really quickly too how I knew right away that you were like the go-to person. You just kind of went into a particular meeting, and I was new, and I just thought, wow, that's impressive. I was just impressed from day one. So we're so happy that you are here with UTA and sharing all of your skills with us. This is fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you again, everybody.
Carolyn?
Thank you. Yeah, and once again, congratulations, Alicia. I want to go to the next topic, which is an initiative that we had mentioned at the beginning of the year on a few initiatives that I was interested in pursuing this year, though the pandemic has primarily taken a good portion of my time. Suicide prevention awareness is really an area that I wanted to have a focus on. I'm very passionate about trying to have people more aware of techniques and abilities to potentially provide this very sad and unfortunate incident that does affect the lives of many across our country, as well as, our community and our agency. And so I just truly believe with UTA, we're really our stewards of our community. We're throughout this region, and UTA is in the position to making an impact on this issue by taking an active stance on suicide prevention and engaging in initiatives that provide support to our employees, riders, and communities. But not only that, helps them become more aware of potential, I hate to say candidates, people who may be thinking of suicide, and how to be aware of that and provide some of that training to them, and not just to our employees, but also, have riders be aware where they could potentially get some training for this as well. So I actually we have a little presentation of some of the work we're doing and some of the coordination efforts we are working on. And I'm going to have Sheldon Sheldon Shaw actually do the presentation for this. But I also really want to thank Tina Bartholomew and the whole committee, which I think we note as well, who've been working on this activity over the last 8 months, even a little bit longer, but really 8 months within the agency and a group of them. So I want to turn this over to Sheldon and just do a personal note to thank Tina Bartholomew as well, who works for Sheldon. So Sheldon?
Good morning, Carolyn, and thank you for your leadership and guidance on this subject. Next slide. And so the big picture goals for the suicide prevention program are to raise awareness, like Carolyn said, to provide resources and support our employees, riders, and the community, and engage in suicide prevention initiatives. Next slide. And as Carolyn was saying, we really want to say thanks to Tina Bartholomew, who's headed up this committee since its inception. And unfortunately, suicide affects all the railroads out there, including our 2 railroads. And as you can see, there's a lot of appetite to be part of the solution. In addition to Tina, I want to recognize a couple of the other core members, which are James Larson, Megan Waters, Mary Wong, and Lindsay Wolf, and they are on the line to answer any questions that may come up. And this is all efforts to be part of the September Safety Suicide Awareness Month. And so those are in-house experts, and they're standing by to answer any questions. Next slide. So here's our 5 steps to success that the committee is working on. And just to draw attention to how important this issue is for our state. Unfortunately, Utah is perennially in the top 10 of states for suicide. In fact, all the states in the Mountain West are normally in the top 10. For our state, we average about 621 suicides per year. And according to the Utah Department of Health, in 2018, the death rate per 100,000 people over the age of 10 in our state was 25. And to kind of correlate that with what's going on today, the death rate for COVID per 100,000 in our state is 12. So that's 12 versus 25. So it really is a big concern for the state of Utah. Next slide. So these are some of our partners, and I was given some notes from the committee to make sure that I covered the things that they asked me to cover. And so as far as partnering, UTA is partnering with organizations throughout our community to raise awareness around suicide. We stand with these organizations and have a shared goal of providing support to individuals and families impacted by suicide, as well as prevent suicide in our company. And other groups that are working in the state of Utah, one of them is Hope Squad. And though that group is in high schools around the state, and they're offering peer-to-peer intervention, which is a great program. As a veteran, I appreciate the Veterans Crisis Line, because veterans, unfortunately, are taking their lives at a high rate across our country, too. And Rail Safety Alliance is the rail safety presentations that are done for Utah, Idaho, and Nevada. And we're reworking our presentation, and it will include some suicide prevention resources so that we will get that out to high school students when we're doing those presentations. Next slide. So community engagement, we want to share some of the things that our committee has been working on. One of the things that we are going to partner on is that we're going to ask our employees and family and friends to be part of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's Out of Darkness virtual walk. That's happening on September 12th. There's about 350,000 people across the country who already signed up to be part of that. You can go to the website and sign up, and you can also be part of fundraising for that. What we'd ask is you take a picture of yourself as you're out on your individual walk and send it to via your social channels to the hashtag Out of the Darkness and also @RideUTA, so that we can help share that as well. We are planning other on-system events with local partners throughout September to raise awareness and support suicide prevention. More details on these events will be shared over the next few weeks. We also plan to launch a special edition of Community Rides. That's a series on the UTA blog, which will highlight our state and local partners and what they're doing for suicide prevention. Next slide. So the Live On campaign, UTA is going to partner in that. And UTA is partnering with the Utah Suicide Prevention Coalition on the Live On campaign, which is intended to raise awareness and help prevent suicide in our state and local communities. That's a statewide partnership of community members, suicide survivors, local leaders, researchers who will provide resources and support to the community. Next slide. So these are some of the signs that we'll see in our system. As part of the campaign, UTA has pledged more than 1,000 ad boards at stations, stops, trains, and buses to help educate riders on available mental health resources. Next slide. We also plan to share campaign videos and messages on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram throughout the month of September in commemoration of the Suicide Prevention Month. Next slide. Something UTA has done throughout the years is that we have placed signs and lights and cameras in areas of concern in order to help prevent suicide. We also have gone out with grant applications to enhance those efforts in other areas in Front Runner and tracks. Next slide. The largest part of our campaign is to stand up a QPR program, and QPR training is an awareness training amongst employees to develop help-seeking behaviors we have put together. The program began last May with light rail operations trainers. We plan to conduct QPA training at UTA's leadership next, and then continue trainings with other employee groups across the country. Metra, the presidency in Chicago, they adopted this several years ago, and they've had a lot of success with their employees and their community with having their employees trained and looking for the signs and symptoms and trying to be part of the solution. Next slide. Finally, you can see our timeline here. This year, we're just looking at this as a pilot program, and you can see that we already have 31 people trained as presenters or instructors for that program. And a shout out to our HR business partners, who I believe are all certified. We have trainers from Front Runner, from Tracks, from Bus, who are certified as presenters for this as we roll this out. And also want to say thanks to the executive team, who have all been very supportive of this program as we get it up and running. And with that, I'd like to ask Tina if I missed anything or anything that she would like to add as far as Suicide Prevention Month.
Thanks, Sheldon. So they say that you can live 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, but only one moment without hope. So I just wanted to thank everyone internally who has stepped up to be stewards of hope, for those who volunteered to go through the QPR certification, and all the support that we've had on the committee and from our leadership. So I don't have anything else unless there's questions.
And then just a reminder, we wanted to, a lot of these efforts, there's a focus on it in September, as Sheldon mentioned. Once again, this September, in a few days, it'll be Suicide Prevention Month. And this is a focus for us with the other organizations that we mentioned throughout Utah.
Thanks,
Carolyn, I would just commend you and your team for the work that's been done here. I don't think there's probably none of us who've either had a family member or maybe even ourselves who have either been challenged with the thought of or action to maybe consider suicide. And I just think this is an important topic for us as an agency to pursue. I also want to give kudos to the team. I sat through some QPR training on Friday and with some of the light rail operators, and that was really helpful. And I think as that rolls out to other employees, that's going to be helpful. And I've also started my fundraising for my walk in September. So I'm just my challenge to the others to raise some money for the cause, but certainly not required. But it will be. I'm looking forward to participating. So thank you. Beth, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I did want to just say thank you so much for putting this emphasis out there. We know that given Utah statistics that this is a definite challenging issue that we all can maybe hopefully help to address. And I thank you again for all the team. And Tina, that was the most powerful opening I've ever heard on this topic. So thank you for that. And I wanted to tell Carlton that the challenge has been accepted. Thanks again.
I truly appreciate your support and the efforts that we're doing, particularly Chair Christensen, because it has been really, he has engaged into the committee and is going to represent us on an event. And so it's just really important. I just find since we are so much engaged in the community and are part of the community, that the more that we can be aware of what might be going on and support others, other than just being the person who gets somebody from here to there, but can provide sort of that support that we could do otherwise. And I do think our operators are engaging in this program, and I think it'll be truly appreciated throughout the agency as well. So thank you for your support.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. I'm thinking that's the end of your report, but I want to make sure.
Yes, it is the end. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And those are great, great recognitions of some great work done here at this agency. That takes us to section. Oh, I should mention, and I failed to mention that previously that public comment that was received was distributed to the board electronically. We certainly welcome comment in the future on this or any other topics that we might receive. So thank you for those who have taken time to make comment to us. Our first item up on contracts, disbursements, and grants is a contract for the Meadowbrook Building 8 roof replacements with Roof Tech LLC. And with that, I'll turn to Eddie Cummins and also maybe Kevin Anderson. Eddie?
Good morning. This is an expense contract with Roof Tech LLC to replace the roof on Meadowbrook Building 8 in the amount of $250,000. The roof on Meadowbrook Building 8 has experienced multiple leaks over the past 4 or 5 years and has reached the end of its useful life. This procurement went out for invitation for bid, and Roof Tech LLC submitted the lowest bid at $234,374 plus 73 cents per square foot for insulation replacement where required. The amount of insulation replacement required will be determined when the old roof is removed, but this contract will not exceed $250,000. The scope of this project includes removing the existing 63,000 square foot roof and replacing with a 0.60 mil polyvinyl roofing system, and we'll be receiving a 20-year warranty. The roof replacement will be completed in a manner as to not hinder future expansion of this particular building. Project is part of our 2020 SGR program. Are there any questions on this contract?
You answered one of those, and that was, I know we were anticipating or thinking about doing some additions, so it's not something we would have to rip out again, I take it, or at least that section of it.
Right, we took all that into consideration, that we would be looking at future expansion potentially.
And then the only other question I had is, how long are you estimating the new roof? They usually come with a warranty and an expected life cycle, and I just wondered what you're anticipating.
Kevin, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Hey, Carlton. This is a 20-year warranty, and it is a replacement warranty. So we've got a good warranty coming with it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Eddie, I noticed in the contract it said it would be completed by this November 20th of this year. And I just am curious, because I know you have a maximum approval amount of $250. Is there any need or any structural issues or replacement even of like anything in regards to the infrastructure itself, or is that already been addressed within the scope of this?
I can let Kevin speak to that, but I will tell you, we're not anticipating any of that. We've had quite a bit of experience over the years of replacing roofs. You know, we have a pretty good idea of where the roofs were leaking at, which will tell us where we'll need to replace insulation. But at this point in time, all we're anticipating is replacing some insulation at 73 cents a square foot. You know, I guess you never know until you get the roof off and see what's under there. But based on our past experience and knowing this building very well, we're not anticipating any structural damage. Kevin, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that sounds good, Eddie. Just if we do find something, we'll bring it back to the board for a change order and approval.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Great. If there aren't any other questions, Beth, can I turn to you for a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the contract with Roof Tech LLC to replace the Meadowbrook Building 8 roof.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Eddie or Kevin, on that item. Our next item, item B, is a contract for the F70 light rail vehicle wraps with turbo images, and we'll go back to Eddie and Kyle Stockley.
Thank you, Chair. This is a 5-year contract with Turbo Images to remove the existing wrap, produce and install a new vinyl wrap on 74 S70 light rail vehicles. The cost of this contract is $1,219,892. And we've talked about this in the past, but the useful life of vinyl wraps is approximately 8 years. The S70s were purchased in 2008, making the wraps approximately 12 years old. We had our vehicle maintenance team inspect the fleet, and the wraps are cracking and peeling throughout the light rail vehicle fleet and need to be replaced. There are 77 S70 light rail vehicles. 3 were wrapped last year, and this contract is to wrap the remaining 74. This was a best value contract and was evaluated based on technical criteria scoring and price evaluation. The first wrap will include a $150 design fee. So the first wrap will cost $16,633, and the remaining wraps will cost $16,483. This project is part of our light rail overhaul program. We anticipate that we'll wrap 14 to 15 light rail vehicles per year. Overhaul budget for this project is approximately $296,000 annually. Any questions on this contract?
Is Turbo Images a local firm, or do you have to pretty much go out of state for something like this?
So they are out of state for this, but they also use some local contractors to help with the labor.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, just a comment. I seeing the new ones versus the old ones, whoa, such a dramatic difference. So I'm excited that this is moving forward. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the light rail vehicle wraps contract with Turbo Images.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Eddie. On that, next item C is a change order for the Depot District Clean Fuels Technology Center Phase 2, guaranteed maximum price for Stage 3 contract amendment with Big D Construction. And with that, we'll turn to Mary Delaretto. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. Yeah, this is a change order for Big D Construction in the amount of $50,351,311 for Stage 3 work for the Depot District project. As you recall, David Osborne, the project manager, presented on the phases of the work 2 weeks ago, I believe, and he's here today as well if you have any additional questions. But this is for the work that includes construction of the bus maintenance building, the operations administration building, and site improvements around the new building and the bus parking area. Will be coming, the work will start is scheduled to begin this fall and would be completed in early 2022. We will be coming back again, probably sometime early next year for additional canopy work, which would be Stage 4. So any questions? This shows what the different phases that we've completed, and this is what Phase 2 is under construction right now. If you guys have looked in the back there, they're putting the asphalt right now on the parking lot. It's looking good back there. And Phase 3 is what this contract amendment is for right now.
So materially speaking, though, Mary and you and David made a great presentation a few weeks ago. Materially, this is really the bulk of the contract, right? I mean, the canopies are not insignificant, but and so do we feel fairly comfortable that the cost? I mean, it's a guaranteed maximum. Do we anticipate a lot of change orders? I guess we never want any change orders, but
I don't believe so. I think we have some contingency built in as well, but I'm going to turn it over to David and let him address that.
Thanks, Mary. We do have some contingency built in. There's always a possibility for some change orders, some things that maybe weren't foreseen or some other things like that, but we've tried really hard to minimize that. I know the contractor has looked at and reviewed the plans and made comments, and our designers have gone through those. And so we're always trying to do things to minimize those. But we do have some contingency that's built into that. We have $1.5 million that's built into that as a contingency for things that might come up.
But you feel like, David, that enough of the design is done that the contractor has a really good idea of what they're in for, I guess.
Yes, they should have a really good idea of what they're in for on this.
Okay, all right. Do you have any questions?
Just a comment. I'm excited to see it move forward. I also I appreciated we know how challenging construction costs can be right now, and even with this uncertainty with COVID, that the construction market is quite challenging. And so I like that this has a guaranteed maximum price element to that, and I really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. So thank you on this.
Hey, I just want to I misspoke. The work will be done early 2023, not 2022. Sorry about that. I misspoke.
Okay. One additional question I had, and this came up in a phone call from a legislator that I received last week. If for some reason we were to take on a different type of a fuel type at some point in the future, like hydrogen or something like that, is there room in the plan? I don't imagine that the bus or the maintenance piece would change a great deal. But if there was another fueling option, is there land that a fueling solution could be found or added to? Or are we sort of limited with the fueling types that we've chosen here?
Right now, with the property that we own, we've got a lot in a pretty small space. And so I don't know that we'd probably need to acquire some additional property in order to do that.
Sure.
I will say that right now, though, the facility will be set up we do compressed natural gas as well as diesel. And we're also going to be, as we discussed at the last meeting, we're going to have the capacity initially to charge up to 30 electric buses. And so we've tried to factor in several different, types of fueling in it. I don't know that we've necessarily have accounted for if we were to look at like hydrogen or anything like that, though.
I did have a follow-up question, Mr. Chair, kind of made me think, okay, just curious, but, and this is what I had understood anecdotally, so please help me if this is not correct, but we had talked loosely about having roughly our bus fleet being roughly a third. In other words, a third diesel, a third CNG, and a third electric, roughly, right? If that element were to change, does that then open up opportunities for other types of propulsion? Instead of, say, we chose to not do as much diesel or some other element, could that maybe make a change to the current layout?
As far as the layout goes and the way that we would service the buses, I don't know that it makes too big of an issue. As you can see on the screen, we've got our bus parking will be to the south of the building, and I don't know that any changes, anything like that, would change the way that we would park or circulate the buses in and out of the parking and into the maintenance into and out of the maintenance building. I think the only thing that would potentially change is if we had to add some sort of another facility or modify a facility to accommodate that different type of fueling. Right now, what will happen is you can see on the far left of the screen there's the building that's not highlighted yellow, but that is where the compressed natural gas and the diesel fueling will occur. And so if we were to change something, maybe there would be an opportunity to make some changes inside that building to do different types of fueling there. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
That did. It's helpful because I mean, we certainly don't know, but we anticipate that we're going to continue to have air quality. And so the way, as I see it, that's where I would see any diminishment of those types of vehicles would be in the diesel category. I recognize that our diesel is quite efficient right now, and I'm not saying anything other than if there were some other structural elements, if there was a potential. So, but that answered the question, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on this contract? If not, Beth, can I turn to you for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the change order for the Depot District Clean Fuels Technology Center, Phase 2, guaranteed maximum price, Stage 3 contract amendment with Big D Construction.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, David. Thanks, Mary. With that, we'll go to our discussion items, and the first one up is our maintenance of way building. And I guess, Mary, you're still on tap with that, and joined by Dave Hancock.
Yes, thank you. We had a maintenance of way building up at our Clearfield station, and as the TOD was progressing, that building was torn down with always the intent of replacing that capacity for the maintenance of way crew. And we had $350,000 in this year's budget to construct a new building. A site hadn't been determined, but we were looking at various locations of property we owned. And then Dave Hancock decided that, was wondering if instead of using that funds to build a new building, we own the OK Manufacturing building right adjacent to the Jordan River Service Center. And that's where all the maintenance of way equipment from Clearfield had been put into that building. And he said it would just be a lot easier, since we already know we have to put funds into that building and refurbish it, was to use that $350,000 allocated for a new building and instead refurbish that building and move that equipment into there. And we don't think it's a budget amendment, but since it's a slight change in scope, we wanted to make sure you were okay with that. Dave could give more details on exactly what will be done if you need that, but that's pretty much the gist of it, what we want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, here's some pictures
maybe
of
that'd be
the
great.
building. Yeah, Dave, do you want to talk through some of these pictures?
Sure. So this building is just south of the Jordan River Service Center, and it's called the OK Manufacturing Building. If you see this picture, if you see the black bar in the back, we have a tenant back there that is OK Manufacturing, or the Gumball Factory. And then the kind of the storage bays are used by MOW for storage of equipment and material, and I believe Todd Bales is using one of the bays as well. So the $350,000, this building is in our future building plan to be moved over to the MOW group, to be moved over into this building. We have done some capital projects the last couple of years. We put a new roof on it, and we put a new water line in this building this year. So we have invested into this building. So this $350,000 that we're talking about would go to improvements, site improvements. As you can see, the asphalt is in really bad shape. It would go to access controls and internet and the UTA network to the building. This front part that you're seeing right here, the 2-story, the previous roof leaked very, very much, and so we have a lot of water damage that we need to go in and take down all of the safety issues that we have with that second floor, with the floor being damaged with water. So really the $350,000 would get us started on what we would need to do to make the building safe, to make it secure, and to put one other project that we want to do is put a canopy on the back side so that we can park 5 MOW bucket trucks that we use on the OCS, so we can park those underneath the canopy and get them out of the weather.
David, I had a question. Oh, I'm sorry if you're not finished. My apologies.
No, go ahead.
I just had a couple of questions. Number one, is the tenant in there long term, and is that going to continue?
You know, they are on a month-to-month lease. They've been there for years. They would continue in there until we needed that area.
And that was my next question. Is this sufficient square footage for MOW, or do they need more? And what does that look like? But I think that sounds like this will be sufficient, but maybe you could give me some detail.
Yeah, I think between this and what we have in Jordan River, this will allow us to move all of our material and equipment indoors. Right now, we are storing a lot of equipment outside at Jordan River, including some pretty expensive wire reels and that kind of stuff that we can move inside once we get some shelving and some storage and warehouse stuff in for the OK Manufacturing building. We can get inside.
And this, so the $350,000 is budgeted for this year. Would you be able to accomplish all of that by the end of this year? Is that the goal?
We would try. I don't know if we would get it all completed by the end of this year. We would probably ask for a little bit of carryover for next year.
Thank you.
Dave, I love the idea of taking care of and utilizing what we have. The question I guess I have is a logistics one, meaning this is probably pretty centrally located for you, and I know it has access to 201 and then subsequently to 215 or I-15, but is this a good location for your crew from a deployment standpoint and managing the system?
Yes, it is. It is. We've been deploying from Jordan River, which is right next door. And so it would be very similar to what we're doing now. And we do have some yards, up north, backyard and that kind of stuff where we have some equipment. So really this is ideally located with access to the freeway.
Well, I certainly, to your one question, Mary, you know, even though it sort of had another name listed in the description, I think it definitely meets the need, and the fact that we can renovate something we have versus build something new, I don't think is contradictory to the intent of the budget, and in line with that. And I certainly would be comfortable moving forward with it. I'm hoping it goes a long way. I look at that parking lot and a little bit of some of the outside elements of the building, and know they're a little tired, and you know, you want it to look and reflect the agency, but I realize it'll go only as far as it'll go, but the structural stuff is the most important. I don't know, Beth, do you have any differing views or thoughts? Or
No, I pretty much agree with that. I think it is the best situation in that, you know, costs of real estate right now are expensive. And it is, as long as it functions, and as long as it has capacity, I think that that this is a good way to manage our assets effectively. So I support doing this. I would suggest we maybe find a different name. The OK Manufacturing. Maybe we should find something else instead.
I don't think we owe anything to the prior tenant. So
that's right.
No.
I think UTA MOW building or asset management building better.
I'm good with that. Although I did like the Gumball Depot as a side note. Just that's what caught my eye. So anyway, I really appreciate your efforts on this, and I know the value of keeping that expensive equipment indoors, and so I'm excited to see this move forward too.
Mary, do you need anything further from us on this item?
No,
or?
just if you're okay with it, we'll just proceed that way.
Okay. Yeah.
There might be another picture of the inside of the building. I don't know if there was one more picture or a couple.
Hopefully you get new carpet out of the deal, Dave.
Yeah. And then hopefully a paint job somewhere down the road, but yeah. Like you said, it only goes so far.
Looks like a little bit of gutting's in order.
Yes.
Maybe we could have a naming contest, Dave. Come up with the best name.
There you go.
I'm on board.
Well, I also would say I've been in places where you try to retrofit a lot, and the spaces are dysfunctional. So I'm hoping, you know, unless it really is functional, that you kind of clean house and make it right from the start. It's hard to go back after people are in offices.
Yeah, that really is the plan. We're going to go in and demo kind of what needs to be demoed to make it safe. And then, you know, if we have enough money, get a designer on board to get some city permits and figure out what we need to do in the future to make it very functional for the group.
Okay, sounds great. Well, good. Well, good luck with that, and we'll hopefully get in there soon. So,
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and thanks, Mary. Next discussion item is the 5-year capital plan, and we've decided to go, even though we don't have our colleague with us today, we're going to go ahead, and then we'll circle back with Kent later on any questions he might have. So, Mary?
Yeah, thanks. So can I have the next slide, please? So every year we need to develop a 5-year capital plan, and per Senate Bill 136. And last year was our first plan that was developed. So this year it's been a little bit easier. We're just updating that, adding a new year, and refining the schedules and budgets as best we can. The most accurate will probably be 2021, and it gets less accurate as you move out into future years. But that's why every year we'll update it and review it. Just as a reminder, the capital projects include any new construction that we do, all the state of good repair projects, our facilities maintenance, our vehicles, both our revenue vehicles and our non-revenue vehicles, safety and security items, our information technology projects, and any major equipment purchases over $25,000. The next slide. The reason we do the 5-year planning is that it helps mitigate the challenges that we have of applying a one-year budget to multi-year projects. This way folks know what their budget's going to be and they don't have to worry about trying to allocate it all in the first year, even though they know they're not going to use it in the first year, so they could accurately allocate it over the years that the project will take to complete. And it also helps in our long-range planning for our budget and setting agency priorities. And next slide, please. So the process is that we get new project requests submitted annually, as in addition to the projects that were already now on the 5-year plan that we know are multi-year. Any new requests are submitted and reviewed by the executive team, and then the projects are prioritized by management for funding consideration. During the prioritization process, we look at, is this going to help us have a safe system, taking care of what we have or replacing what we have? Those are most of the SGR projects. Leveraging grants and partner funds. If we could get a grant or have partners who are willing to pay for things, it's much easier to get them approved. And then things what create system improvements. Next slide, please. The prioritization must result in a plan that's consistent with UTA's long-range transit financial plan. We want to make sure it fits into the budget that we have. Requests are adjusted as needed to meet the anticipated 5-year budget resources, and projects with lower priorities may be reduced in scope, or we may move them out to future years. And any new unforeseen items that may come up during the year will be considered for annual budget amendments as needed. Next slide. So this is the 2021 budget, proposed budget for capital projects. You have the details in your packet in the capital plan, but this is more grouped by project categories. So you can see in 2021, there's approximately 16 million that will be allocated to IT projects. We do have a grant that has already been awarded for in that category. So you can see we would need 14.8 million of UTA dollars. Safety and security, 766,000 anticipated next year. We did have a grant as well awarded recently for safety and security, which will be applied next year. And you could just look down here, revenue vehicles and white fleet, 36.7 million. We do have grants for that. Mostly those grants, I believe, are for the Volkswagen vehicles, the electric buses. Vehicle rehab and repair, 15.7 million, and the grants there are for the engine overhaul for commuter rail.
And Mary, when you say
Yes.
vehicle, you're really talking about like tracks or light rail vehicles, right? Not automobile vehicles.
I am including bus repair in that as well. So transmissions and engine replacements, but not our white fleet vehicles. So that would be commuter rail, light rail, and buses. Rail maintenance, state of good repair activities total $24 million. And then I listed some of the bigger capital projects that will be having the larger budgets. I listed them out separately so you could see, and then I lumped the other capital projects together. So I wanted to just point out a few things. So airport, $7 million, that's on track to get completed next year. Depot District, these numbers, well, the overall numbers for Depot District have gone down a little after we negotiated this last GMP, and also there were some grants we hadn't accounted for. So that happened after this was all prepared. So when you see the final one coming back, or what we bring to the advisory council in a few weeks, these numbers will be slightly lower because of the additional grant funds, and it went down $4 million in price. So you'll see that coming up in a couple of weeks. The Ogden-Weber BRT project, we anticipate spending about $52 million next year, with $42 million of that being primarily the small starts grant that we're anticipating. Tiger projects, $13 million, with 1.5 million of grants and 7.9 million from our local partners. You can see a very small amount of that is UTA funds. The Northern Utah County Double Track, that we do have 9 million budgeted already for that this year, I believe 9.5, but the prices have come in much higher than anticipated. We're still working on seeing if we could get that budget down, but we're anticipating that we may need up to $9 million more next year to get that double tracking completed. So that is shown in the budget here. The Mid-Valley BRT project, we are including it here, and we have local and state partner funds for the first year, but we still have a $14 to $16 million shortfall on that project. So unless we can find a resource for those funds, this project may get pushed out to future year. So we still have a gap on that. Other capital projects totaling $43 million. You could see we're only anticipating 22 million in UTA funds for those other projects. We are anticipating different partner or state or grant funds coming in. If they do not materialize, some of these projects may not materialize unless we could find another source of funding. So this is our best scenario, our best guess right now, but many of those grants we have in place. Many of the others we are very confident of, like Small Starts, but some of the other grants we are, like the build grant that we submitted, we don't know yet. So some of these things may get altered next year if those funds don't happen. You could see the total UTA funds will, in addition to just cash that we have, there'll be bonding and leasing. The bonding amount, based on the Depot District price going down, that bonding amount you'll see coming back, instead of 53 million on the bottom of the page, will be closer to 48 million, and then 36 million in leasing there. So,
and Mary, is that that's not anticipating any new bonding, I assume. It's just utilizing bonds that have been previously issued.
Right. In 2021, we do not anticipate any new bonds. In 2022, however, for the rest of the 5-year plan, we do anticipate additional bonds being needed.
And then on the leasing, those aren't previously issued leases. I assume there's some new leasing issuance that will take place.
Leasing. Previous leases are already anticipated or already accounted for in the transit financial plan. So these would just be added as well.
Okay.
I think the buses were going to 12 to 14 years, and the paratransit vehicles, I believe, are 6 years. And then we did, Kathy, next slide, please.
Can I ask one other question?
Sure.
Maybe before you leave that slide.
Sure.
Is that, so there was, at least at some point, a year ago when we talked about the fourth quarter funds for Salt Lake County, some of those first few years were going toward capital improvement. Are they in this UTA funds not bonded?
They are in the UTA funds, correct. If you have that breakdown by year, it'll show this where we're allocating those Salt Lake County funds.
Okay. All
It's
right.
distributed by project in that breakdown.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I have the next slide, please? So this is the total 5-year plan by project category as well, and some specific projects. This is going to change, you'll see, and sorry, there just wasn't time when this had to be posted and the changes had been made to get those updates in here. But this will be, the total now is a little bit less because of the 4 million reduction in the Depot District project. So that's going to be more like 976 million for the total. Total grants will stay the same. As far as local partners, I think we increased that for the front runner double tracking. We decided that we really do need some local partner or state funding to help get that work done. So we took some of that out of bonding and put it into our local partner. So the bonding goes down a little bit, the need for bonding and over the 5-year, as well as there was some radios, I believe 10-ish million of radios that had been listed as bonding, but we decided it's more appropriate to have them in the lease. So the bond amount is now showing as 148 million instead of 166 million. And the leasing amount needed has gone up to 208 million. So any questions on the 5-year? We do have the details by year if you need those, but this was just, we want to show 2021 because that will be incorporated into the 2021 overall budget. And then we wanted to show you the 5 years. But if you want the details. And then Kevin, next slide, it breaks it down by year. So you can see each year what the proposed budget is and how much grants, partners, and UTA funds. And again, a caveat that those numbers will change slightly based on those 3 items I talked about.
Well, and I agree, Mary, with the, equipment like radios. Leasing is a much more, it aligns a little more with the useful life of the equipment than a bond might. So I think those types of equipment, we ought to look to a lease solution.
Yeah, that's what we decided. So anyway, any questions on anything here?
So I did have a quick question on when you're looking at this and you're making a determination of these projects, and I just kind of wanted to maybe have you articulate this. When you're looking at the grant potential / what you're pursuing, how often do you have to make modifications as a result of that? It's kind of a broad question, but I'm just curious how you structure some of those grant elements within that budget proposal.
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but each year we're going to look at it. We'll know more if we actually receive the grants or, what our likelihood of receiving those grants is or partner funds, and we will adjust it each year. So we'll come back each year and adjust it. And then during the year, if we had, for instance, next year, we have a front runner project, which is anticipating getting some bill grant funds and state funds. If that doesn't happen, the project just wouldn't go forward next year.
Okay. I just asked that. It does answer the question. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. I just asked that because, of course, we have found some construction increases, say, for instance, on the Northern Utah double tracking that changed that budget. We have to kind of figure out a strategy to maneuver within this new price range. Right. And I've just wondered how structurally in the past, I guess my question is more historical, is how often does it help to align with the grant process? But you kind of answered that, so I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, and we do have each year, I believe we have about a $2 million contingency. It's not a lot in the overall scheme of things, but we do have $2 million contingency that is included in the 5-year budget per year that we can allocate to different projects or new projects as needed.
That's helpful as well. Thank you.
And then if we needed to do a mod during the year, I think we did a couple this past year, or at least one. So if we needed to do a budget mod, we would come to you with that request as well during the year. Have the next slide, please. So this is just reiterating what I had said earlier. A lot of the projects listed, especially the larger ones, anticipate significant outside funding sources, either grants or local partners or state funds. And if they don't materialize, those projects, as I said, may be delayed, put on hold, or other sources of funding sought. For instance, the Ogden-Weber State BRT project, if we don't get that Small Starts grant, we don't have the funds to complete that. We anticipate we will get it. We have every reason to believe we'll get it, but it's not a 100% guarantee till we get it. The Sharp Tintic Railroad connection, we need some additional funds to complete that. We do have a CRISI grant application in through the Federal Railroad Administration, and we're hoping to get that so that project can be completed. I mentioned Mid-Valley VRT needing additional funds before we can do that. Front runner double tracking, Point of the Mountain Transit. There's a lot of interest in that project, but we have $1 million already allocated, I believe, from the state legislature, but we need additional funds to complete that environmental and then any design work as we move forward. And we are anticipating state or local partner funds, and we also have a build grant request in for that project as well for the planning side of it. Davis Salt Lake Community Connector, we would need to identify funds for that. We're considering small starts for that as well. And then, you know, if these funds don't materialize, the projects can be delayed, might need to be delayed. Next slide, please. Here's some additional projects that are in the hopper, you know, that may come to you in the future. Right now, we're calling them below the line, but if funding opportunities arise, we may move them above the line. Right now, we're doing a study, Provo to Payson Transit study, so we'll see what comes out of that. We did a study on the Sandy South Jordan Circulator. That one is still just kind of sitting on the shelf, waiting for the right time. We're seeing how it might fit into the Point of the Mountain study that's going on. It may be incorporated into something like that. Southwest Salt Lake County Transit, that's another study that we're looking at. We are anticipating the need for a garage somewhere in South Salt Lake County as our fleet grows. That's in the facility master plan that Hal's presented in the past. We also, in that facility master plan, it identifies a light rail facility near the airport and perhaps one in Utah County, and a commuter rail facility, maybe in Ogden or in Provo. Different bus garage remodels and expansions. And then, as Dave mentioned earlier, the OK Manufacturing building remodel. We have that as a future, redoing that whole building. Next slide, please. So right now we are, if you have any input today, before we go to the advisory council on September 16th, we're going to present to the advisory council and then for their consultation and recommendations. And then we'll come back to you and present the final plan for review and approval. And then, as I mentioned, that first year of that plan will be incorporated as the capital budget for the 2021 annual budget for UTA. I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
I think, first of all, thank you. And I realize there's a lot of work and a lot of sort of value trade-offs that take place in the preparation of a budget like this. So it's not a simple task to tell some no and some yes. And if you're the gatekeeper, you probably took the blunt of that. But I'll look at it a little more closely over the next week or so, and certainly, if we see some things that are concerning, we'll raise those before they go to the advisory council. But
great.
Beth, any questions that you had?
No, I just wanted to thank you for outlining this and putting this together. I think that this is really, really valuable for us.
Great. And if Kent needs any explanation of anything, I'll be happy to sit with him and explain anything that we presented today.
Well, and I also just want to also give kudos to the fact that I know this is sort of the second year of the 5-year planning process, and I'm sure it went a little easier this year than last year, but I think it's a good strategy. And anyway, thanks for your efforts in getting it there. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks. With that brings us to other business, and that's our next meeting, which will be on September the 2nd. And we only, due to some other scheduling issues, we only have 2 meetings in September, one at the beginning and one toward the end. With that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.